Hello everybody! Welcome to another Juju live session, this time around about Modern Shaabi. And I had to use this Shaabi music to get me on track, guys, because today I did not sleep. So I had a major insomnia and I was up from 3 a.m. working, creating, and just getting things done. Welcome to this new Juju live session. As I've already mentioned, we are on about one of the most polemic, controversial, and also popular themes in contemporary Egyptian dance, Modern Shaabi. What is it? Who does it? Why we should study it? Is it a sexual dance? Is it appropriate? Should it be forbidden? Do I like it? All of that, okay? I'm gonna answer in this live session. At the end of the session, I'm also going to invite you for a new pioneering online training that we're hosting this December at Joana Saahirah's online dance school. That will be Modern Shaabi training. It's gonna be intensive, kick-ass, and it's gonna happen only once and be gone by the end of the year, totally gone. So if you don't join now, you will lose it forever and ever. Without further ado, feel welcome to join me. Feel welcome to share your questions either live with me or if you watch this session in the replay, in the recorded format. And before I dive into the questions I have selected around the theme of Modern Shaabi, let me tell you the protocol, which is who I am. I am a world-renowned Oriental dancer, teacher, choreographer, and author, and I'm also the creator of the pioneering online platforms Joana Saahirah's World and Joana Saahirah's Online Dance School, delivering authentic Egyptian dance, personal discovery, and empowerment. And very soon, I will also be the author of a podcast, The Oriental Cafe, that I cannot wait to share with all of you guys. This is gonna be amazing. And once again, I'm going to do it my way, in an original way, in a way that builds bridges and really delivers value. I cannot wait to share it with you. Now, diving immediately into the questions I have around Modern Shaabi. First of all, you know that I like to go to the basics, right? What is Shaabi? This is not a question I selected. This is just something I want to answer so that everyone who is listening to this session knows exactly what we're talking about. Because in terms of Egyptian dance and music and culture, very often people presume they're talking about the same thing, but they're talking about very different things, okay? Because they have different concepts of the same thing. So what is Shaabi? First of all, understand this. Shaabi comes from the word Shab. Shab means literally the people of Egypt. Shab Masr, the people of Egypt, okay? So Shaabi is a term that refers to anything that comes from the people of Egypt, okay? A Shaabi place, a Shaabi neighborhood, a Shaabi dance style, Shaabi musical style, a Shaabi party, a Shaabi wedding. This term refers to popular Egyptian something, okay? In the case of dance, it is dance, but it could be anything else, everything else, okay? Just like the term beledi comes from the word beled, homeland, the country where you come from, the word Shaabi refers to popular something, something that belongs to the people of Egypt, okay? So now that I got that out of the way, let's dive into the questions. Is Shaabi a new dance style? Okay, I've been asked this one, let's say in the last 10 years, while I was living and performing in Egypt, and when I started traveling the world, Shaabi was not that popular, okay? So I would teach a lot of classical, modern Egyptian dance, different folkloric styles, tableau solos, beledi awedi, but I would not be requested even by event organizers to teach Shaabi. In the last 10 years, that has changed dramatically, and for good reason, okay? So Shaabi dance and music has always existed. This is not a new style. And actually, this is one of the things that I see referred the most that it is a new style, that it's a mistake. It is not a new style. Shaabi music has always existed in Egypt, but not with a tone in the style that we know it recently, mostly from the Egyptian Revolution in 2011. That was the moment when what we call modern Shaabi became more popular for many reasons that I'm gonna mention in a second, okay? So, although Shaabi is not a new style, we have always had Shaabi music in Egypt, from the Shab of Egypt, okay, Shab, Masr. The reality is the Shaabi that we know nowadays, the modern Shaabi influenced by the Merganet, and in a second I'm also gonna tell you what are the Merganet. It is a different style. It is different from the old style Shaabi of, let's say, Ahmed Hadawiya, which is one of the most famous old style Shaabi singers, Ahmed Hadawiya. Very famous, not the only one, but a very famous representation, a very famous symbol of the so-called old style Shaabi. The new style has specific characteristics. First of all, it is much more political and it is much more rebellious. It depends on the music, okay? But generally speaking, the modern Shaabi that we now hear and dance to reflects a society in turmoil. It is a social dance or a dance against the system in many ways, in many situations, not always. You have different themes in modern Shaabi, even themes that I don't like, themes that I would never dance to, like sexual harassment, and other things related to the way men relate to women, and not in a good way, okay? In a second also I will tell you about that. But there are very interesting songs talking about the hardship of life, talking about politics, talking about social issues, talking about revolution. And then again, with the Arab Spring and the movement that we witnessed in Egypt in 2011, that style gained a new life, obviously informed and influenced by the global market that we live today, that we're living on today. So the kids, the composers that are creating this modern Shaabi music are mostly influenced by the West, by hip-hop, by rap, by American Western music and references. So there is a mix way bigger than it was in the old style of Shaabi, way more notorious, a mix between Oriental elements, Shaabi elements, and Western elements. There is also a more electronic side to the music, because very often the modern Shaabi is created in computers, by synthesizers. It is not the old style of composition in instruments, okay? So old style Shaabi would be composed by the oud or by the anun, for instance, and modern style Shaabi is mostly composed by computers and synthesizers and orgs, and a much more modern electronic kind of device, okay? And that shapes the tone of the music and the feeling of the music and the rhythm, the tempo. It shapes everything, okay? Also, let me dive a little bit more on the mix between Western influences and Shaabi influences. What do I mean by Shaabi influences? I mean movements, musical movements of the streets of Egypt, but also a mix of Zar, Sufi music, music from the Mawalid. There is a cocktail of influences, of underground musical influences in the modern Shaabi. Now, if you don't know those underground references, it's hard to identify them. And this is why knowing Egyptian music and culture is so important for the ones who dance it. Because if you know these subcultures, what is Zar? What is Sufi, Egyptian Sufi music? What is the Mulid or the Mawalid? What are these things? If you know these references, you can identify them in a modern Shaabi piece, you can dance them more accurately, and you can enjoy the richness of the music much more. So knowing the culture is key, all right? Although Shaabi is not a new dance and musical style, it is certainly something that has taken a life of its own in the last decade, as I've already mentioned. And the modern style that we do nowadays is also something that will invite dancers to go into a very different feeling, okay, than the older style. A little bit more masculine, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more rebellious, a little bit more openly sensual, a little bit more into rule breaking and out of the box, raw, unpolished movement. And there is a mix of amazing stuff here and stuff that I personally don't like that much. So it also depends on the person who is practicing it, okay? I think that each one of you will bring your own knowledge to the style and your own taste and also your own level of elegance, because I believe we can do a raw, mean, grounded, earthy, crazy, amazing Shaabi piece without being cheap, without being low level. It is possible, but then it depends on your knowledge, your talent, your creativity, and also on the way you see yourself, right? And what you will do to stand out. I think that standing out through quality is always more interesting than standing out for, you know, looking cheap or doing obnoxious things just to be known, just to be famous. But that's just me. I'm a weirdo, okay? Now, what else? What do I think about Shaabi? And this is a very personal question. And I have shared my answer with students here and there. I did not start liking Shaabi at all. This is the first thing I want you to know. I actually hated it. Okay, I'm going to be very honest as usual. I'm not going to tell you that I warmed up to it immediately. No. For many years while I was dancing in Cairo, in my show, it was even forbidden to mention Shaabi because I felt it was so beneath me and my musicians. I said, no, we are professional. Ehna fananin, we are artists. What the heck, you're talking about bringing a modern Shaabi piece here? We're not fooling around, we're working seriously. So I was very resistant to Shaabi because the few musical pieces I heard on the radio were not very good. And I was, as I still am, very aware that in order to create and present a professional Oriental dance show, I need very good music. The quality of the music that you choose for a show, for a presentation, is 50% of the quality of the show, in my opinion. So I was always very careful to choose high quality music. Even in Shaabi, Baladi worlds, even in folklore, where you don't necessarily have the most sophisticated music, I always searched for the best. Okay, so for folklore, I would go to Mahmoud Reda, of course, because I was studying and working with Mahmoud and I was very close to him. And I would go for the classics. I would go for high standard music. And in my mind, Shaabi was not it, okay? Hi, Stuno. Good morning, darling. Good morning. Let me know what you want to know about Shaabi and take the chance of catching me here. So I started with a lot of resistance towards Shaabi. I did not like it. I did not feel it would fit in a professional show. I felt that Shaabi was something only for a party in the street. That's in street parties everywhere. I would often go with my own musicians as an observer, okay, not necessarily as a participant, to these street parties and witness and see how people were playing music, how they were dancing, and how this style was developing into this powerful, outrageous, sometimes overtly sexual, sometimes dance. I kept my distance, but I observed it and I studied it and I watched it and I researched until a student came to Cairo, an American student. And at the time I was only teaching with Mahmoud Reda. I was not teaching abroad yet, but I received students at my home in Zamalek, in a neighborhood called Zamalek. So she came and she asked me, irony of all ironies, for Shaabi. Joanna, I want you to teach me modern Shaabi. Teach me a choreography. I want to do this in my country. I say, oh no, not Shaabi, please. She said, yes, that's exactly what I need. Please, Joanna. I say, okay, for you, as a challenge. Very often I try to get out of my comfort zone and do things and go for styles and territories that are not my territory because I want to prove myself wrong. Really, I want to challenge myself and I want to prove myself wrong and I want to make sure that there is something there that I probably didn't see, And rest assured, when you get out of your comfort zone and you give something that you did not previously like a chance, most times you will be pleasantly surprised. And I was very surprised. By the way, I actually started to love Modern Shaabi while I was teaching the students. So I had to gather all the technique that I had learned, everything I had watched. I had to gather all my information, of real life, daily life in Egypt, and being very involved in the environment of the music, not necessarily promoting myself or promoting my show. I was too busy working, and working and studying and observing. And as I was teaching her, I started to fall in love with the style. And I was almost shocked at how much I loved it and how much I needed it. Because modern Shaabi, when it's properly done, will challenge a lot of your concepts of movement, what you could do, what you cannot do in Oriental dance. It will challenge a lot of the feelings and moods that you usually allow yourself to go for. So we often have moments of rage, of fun, of madness, of absolute creative freedom in this particular style that you don't find in any other style. Not even in tableau solos, which are very much, like a blank canvas. Tableau solos are what I usually say, open doors to creativity because you're not attached to a specific style. But I discovered that modern Shaabi, more than tableau solos, more than a Beledia Wedi, where you are improvising 100%, is a style that is really challenging you to see how far can you go in your creativity, how far can you go in your madness, how real and down and dirty can you go, how honestly can you express your anger, your frustration, your hopelessness, your darkness in an interesting, creative way. How much can you embrace the wild side of life and actually dance it and express it and go deeply into it without the fear of looking strange or ugly or not feminine. I was hooked. I have to admit I was hooked, and it was one of those moments when I realized I was falling in love with Shaabi that I felt, oh my God, why did I have so much prejudice? Why was I so ignorant and so resistant to it? And then I realized why. Okay, because then again, I had this idea that in my show, in my professional performance, I could not get too close to the audience, that a distance between dancer and audience should be preserved. And Shaabi gets you closer to Egyptian audiences because you're getting closer to the world of common Egyptians. And once I broke that barrier, once I broke that frontier that I had built for myself, I found out a bigger, deeper, more powerful connection with my audiences in Cairo, and it was fabulous. Needless to say, I started teaching it, choreographing it, doing it in my shows, and it became one of my staple challenging territories and one of the things I love teaching the most. It is so much fun and it is cathartic. It is, transcendental if you want to go there. And I became a fan. All right. So very often we start not understanding a style or not liking a style Not necessarily because the style is not interesting, but because we don't allow ourselves to go there, or we're ignorant, okay? It happened with me with Kulthum, for instance. For many years, I did not understand Kulthum, and because I did not understand it, I did not like it. Can you imagine? And nowadays, I'm Kulthum's biggest fan, and I use it, you know, frequently, almost every day in my work. So take your time, you know, to dive into these styles and to get to know them, and put your prejudices and your misconceptions a little bit aside. Give the style an opportunity to surprise you, and it probably will, just as it did for me, okay? Let me know what you want to know about it. Also, I'm reading Stunel's question. When you began presenting Baladi in your show, did you still feel like Shaabi couldn't be presented professionally? Yes, Stunel, yes. I introduced the Baladia wedding in my show in Cairo very early on, when nobody was doing it. It was very unglamorous and not trendy at all. I have already told this story. And after I started doing it, other dancers, including Egyptian dancers, saw it. They saw it was working, and they started doing it as well. So it became fashionable again. But when I started, it was not fashionable. But in my mind, the Baladia Wadi was superior to the Shaabi, because the Baladia Wadi, first of all, was fully improvised, okay? And I had very good musicians. So I knew that every Baladia Wadi that my orchestra would play would be superb from the musical point of view. I'm not even speaking about myself. I'm talking about musically. I knew that my musicians, my accordionist and my tabal, mostly, they would deliver amazing improvised music. I knew it, because I knew they were talented and experienced and very connected to me. But Shaabi was not in that category in my mind. I was used, like most Egyptians, to listen to Shaabi on the radio, on the internet, on taxis, when you went somewhere and the taxi driver would necessarily almost always have a Shaabi song. And in my mind, it was hard to bring to a professional show a musical style that was not very sophisticated, and that my musicians also would not need to be very talented for. Okay, obviously, the choice of music is important. Even if you go for Shaabi style, as I eventually did, it was very important to choose a song that was good. So within the Shaabi style, you have horrible music and you have excellent music. Okay? I suggest to my students one of my favorite Modern Shaabi songs by Hakim. I choreographed that one, and I taught it in New York and many other places, in China, in Japan. I taught it in many countries, and it is one of the most amazing Shaabi songs ever. It's called Halawa. I'm gonna write it down. Wait, let me see. Halawat Ruh. Something like this. I'm writing it in the comments, by Hakim. So when I started to introduce Shaabi in my show, I was very careful to choose songs that were within the style, the most sophisticated, the richest songs, for my sake and for the sake of my musicians as well, because being professional artists and experienced artists, they felt ridiculous if I would ever ask them to play Shaka Boom Boom. Okay, they would tell me, you're crazy, you lost your mind, what the hell are we doing here, we're losing our time, you know. So there are a lot of Shaabi songs that I would never do because they're not good. That's as simple. And a lot of them are very popular, but popular does not mean good. Just because something is very popular, it doesn't mean it's very good. Okay, so it is important to distinguish, especially when you tackle Shaabi music, what is good modern Shaabi music and what is not, because you will find a lot of nasty, very bad music in this style. A lot, okay? And you will also find incredible modern Shaabi music, like the one I just mentioned, Halawat Ruh by Hakim, okay? So be very careful on the choice of music, as I was when I started to introduce it in my show, yeah? Does Shaabi have components that can be broken down like you did in Baladi Awadi? Not really, not really. The Baladi Awadi answers to a very traditional structure, right? So when you're doing a Baladi Awadi, you have the taksim, usually, with the accordion. That's the solo between accordion and dancer. You have this middle section when the percussive elements of the orchestra start to get into the conversation. That is the tabla, the dohola, the rik, the duf, depends on what the orchestra has. And then you have the final unit, let's call it, of the awadi, that is this crescendo of rhythm and intensity and elements, musical elements, that end up in this explosion, this big orgasm, this beautiful celebration. That is the structure of a Baladi Awadi. The modern Shaabi music is very much structured like pop song, okay? Like pop songs. So they don't respond necessarily to a structure of beginning, middle, and end like the Baladi Awadi, all right? It is varied. It is varied. You usually start with a phrase, the development of a theme, then the chorus, then you go back to another phrase, development of that theme, and then the chorus. It's very much like pop music, yeah? Dahab, hello, Sahar. It's out of a film, I think. Yeah, Sahar is asking me about Halawa Ruh. Yeah, I think it's in the soundtrack of a movie. I think so. You will find it on my YouTube channel, Halawa Ruh. I think the choreography is there. You can check it, and then you can search on YouTube and see. But I think it is in the soundtrack of a movie, yes. Sahar says, but this Shaabi you mentioned is something about a mixture of old school Shaabi and the modern style. Yes. So if we talk about Halawa Ruh, the Shaabi theme I told you about, that is a good example of the cocktail of influences I mentioned at the beginning of this session. Sahar, you can watch the session from the beginning and you will hear me talking about that. So good modern Shaabi music is a cocktail of Oriental elements, Western elements like rap, like techno music, like electronic music, like hip hop, and also underground cultures. I call them underground cultures, okay? And they are the Sufi music and dance and culture, the Zar, and the Mawalid, the celebrations of important figures in Islam, very important celebrations, very important occasions in the life of Egypt, okay? And also, of course, the Merganet that I'm gonna tell you about in a second. So Halawa Ruh will bring these influences, or at least some of them. If you know how to identify them, you see the richness of the music. It is not the case for every modern Shaabi music. This is why, again, so important to know how to choose your music, okay? And remember, I will repeat this, just because it's very popular, it doesn't mean it's good music, okay? Yes, yeah. Okay, guys, so what else do I have here? What are the Merganet and what's the relation to Shaabi? All right, so the Merganet, the word Merganet is the plural of Mergan, okay? Mergan means literally festival or gathering or party or event. So Mergan can be used in different contexts. For instance, the dance festivals in Cairo, they are Merganet, okay? Sometimes parties in the street, gatherings for different reasons, concerts, they can be considered Merganet. And the modern Shaabi that we're speaking about in this live session is influenced by the Merganet, especially from the moment of the Arab Spring, especially from the moment Egypt erupted in the so-called Egyptian Revolution. Why? For many reasons. First of all, because people, and by people I mean Shab Masr, the people of Egypt, they came big time into the streets, and there was the rise of a street life like we had never seen before. I was in Cairo at the revolution. I was at home actually, so I lived this. I lived it. I had been performing the night before everything exploded in Midan Tahrir, and at the time I was still living in Zamalek, very close from Midan Tahrir, from downtown, Wust el Balad. And I remember to go home late at night from my work to a world, and waking up to a very different world, and listening to the sound of the crowds in Midan Tahrir, Tahrir Square, from my home, from my balcony. So I remember this was a time when Egyptians collectively took to the streets in so many ways, and the Merganet were intensified. They were made or turned into a movement, into a style, into a happening from this particular moment. And of course, they have influenced the modern Shaabi music and dance so much, because suddenly you had people in the street, you had street gatherings, you had street events more than ever, and you had a very particular political phase in Egypt filled with hope, but also filled with rage against the system, rage against corruption, rage against all the things that are not working in Egypt. All the injustice, all the torture, all the corruption and rotten system that does not allow Egyptians to have the life quality they deserve. So the Merganet and the modern Shaabi, they were kind of solidified big time with the Arab Spring. And they were solidified through the political situation in Egypt. A lot of it came from politics. It came from social issues that for the first time were on the table. So many times I hear people talking about modern Shaabi like it has nothing to do with politics or religion or economy. It has everything to do with that. And if you know Arabic and if you understand the lyrics, you will see there are different kinds of Shaabi music. There is a Shaabi music that addresses those political issues and social issues, and then there is the Shaabi music that is more sexualized, okay? That's the one I don't think it's so interesting. Also because it reflects a social problem in Egypt, which is sexual harassment in the streets and sexual harassment everywhere, basically, okay? It's a big social problem, and also a problem that came to the public discussion for the first time during the time of revolution, when so many women were abused by the police, by other people in the manifestations. So I want you to look at modern Shaabi and the Merganet in the context of the Arab Spring. I want you to look at it, at both concepts connected, because they fed each other, they complement each other, they inspired each other. And I also want you to remember that both of them reflect the contemporary Egypt, the economic problems, the political problems, a new vision of Egyptians, or the new vision Egyptians have for Egypt, okay? And their desire to have the life they deserve, and to have a country where good people are rewarded for being good, as opposed to corruption being rewarded because that's part of the system. I don't know if I'm making myself understood. This is a complex subject, and I'm just bringing it shortly, but I hope clearly. So the Merganet, or festivals, or street gatherings, or events, they were like the extra fire, okay, that fueled modern Egyptian music, Shaabi style, and dance, music and dance. So we will find a lot of these movements that we do in Shaabi dance in the streets, in the gatherings, in these festivals, in these street parties, where you will find all sorts of people, you will find all sorts of things, hashish and alcohol and craziness and amazing stuff and amazing music and madness and creativity and interesting political conversations, and a mix of all this. It's like an explosive cocktail of contemporary people and contemporary issues and contemporary politics, and the rage against the machine. It is rage against the machine, and this is one of the reasons I love it so much, by the way. Hi Ramza. What else? Is Shaabi a sexual dance? Okay. Let me know, guys, what do you think? Is Shaabi a sexual dance? And actually, this is one of the things that most dancers mention, and by dancers I mean students, okay? Women who are in direct contact with me, they tell me, oh, it's too sexual. And I have news for you, okay? I've already mentioned that the style of music that you choose is important. And although there are songs within the modern Shaabi style that are sexualized and they objectify women, and they are, some of them, plain, ordinary, very bad taste songs, in my opinion. There are many others who are super interesting, exciting, fun, and full of material to play with, full of material to be creative with. So I think that the sexual component of modern Shaabi style has to do first with the choice of the music. If you choose a music that talks about how cool it is to sexually harass a woman in the street, you're choosing a music with that theme. So you're not going to get away from that theme if that's your choice of music. But if you go for a choice of music that has nothing to do with that, and on the other hand, brings interesting content to the table, then you will be able to do something that is not sexualized. Now, Shaabi is sensual, which is not the same as sexualized, okay? So I do think there is a raw sensuality in this particular style, different from the sensuality of baladi or the sensuality of Raqs Sharqi, yani classical. I think it's different. It is more down to earth, it is more raw, it is more street-like, it is a little bit more unpolished, if you like, but it can be really interesting. And sensual is not sexual. So you can make it sexual if you want to by choosing a song that is gonna deliver that, and by doing movements and going for postures and an energy that is sexual, that is provocative on purpose. And that's a choice. That is not the style itself. That is a choice, okay, that the dancer takes. And sometimes dancers make that choice because they know it will call attention. Even if it's not the right kind of attention, they will know, oh, people will talk about this. Even if they criticize it, they say this is nasty, this is obnoxious, but they're gonna share it, they're gonna talk about it, they're gonna hate on it, but there will be movement around it. So a lot of times, I think dancers go for the sexualized songs within the modern Shaabi repertoire because they know it's gonna be polemic, it's gonna bring attention, it's gonna bring engagement. Even if it is the wrong kind of engagement, because, you know, I don't think you want to be known for being obnoxious, right? I don't think so. A dancer who wants to be known, I want to believe, wants to be known because of the art, because of talent, because of adding something interesting to the table, right? Bringing something good to the dance, not because she or he is doing something cheap. And rest assured, people will talk about it and they will share those videos and they will engage with those videos, but they will not love them and they will not respect them. So it is a choice, guys. In relation to the sensuality of the style, as I've already mentioned, I do believe it is very sexy, very sexy. And it all comes from the way you present yourself, the way you are comfort in your own skin, you are comfortable in your own self, in your own body, the way you see yourself as a woman as well. If you respect yourself, if you don't respect yourself, all of that plays a role in the way you're gonna dive into the sensuality, the raw sensuality of Shaabi style. So then again, I think it's so important to have the good taste, the criteria to choose the good music within the style, and also to differentiate sensuality from sexual enticement, okay? Sensuality is part of the dance and the music. Sexual enticement is a choice of the dancer. Okay, you may take it, you may take that choice, you may choose it or not, but don't put it in the music, don't put it in the dance, don't put it in the Egyptian culture. Okay, sometimes I get very irritated when people presume that the problem is with the Egyptian music. No, the problem is not with Egyptian music. In Egypt, you have amazing music and lousy music, as you have everywhere else in the world, okay? But dancers very often choose lousy music because it is polemic. Shaka boom boom. It is polemic. And it will cause an uproar. And they feel they're going to get attention. But it's not the kind of attention you would want. Believe me, okay? I think the Western influence, says Tuno, may have made some songs more sexualized. Okay, that is a very interesting point, Tuno. I am not sure if what made the modern Shaabi style more sexualized was the influence from the Western world. I am not sure. I'm not sure. I think that what made it more sexualized was perhaps an eagerness to get everything on the loose. Remember that Egypt is sexually segregated. It's a country where men and women have different worlds. Okay, in Egypt you still have schools with places for girls, places for boys. You still have the mosques, for instance. You have an area for the women to pray and an area for the men to pray. If you go to the gym, you still have the area, the block only for the women and the block only for the men. So that is called a sexually segregated society, okay? Also, it's a society, it's a country where people are getting married later and later and later due to economic limitations, okay? And a society where dating is not normal, all right? So common Egyptians will not date. You know, they choose someone, or their family chooses someone, and they will be engaged to marry. The question is, we have a generation of young people who cannot afford to get married until late in life. So there are a lot of sexual issues in Egypt, okay, and sexual repression. And I believe that the Merganet, the revolution of 2011, and this new possibility of change and freedom got mixed and resulted sometimes in a sexualized, over-sexualized music and dance as a reaction to the repression. But I don't think it has to do with the Western influence. I don't think so. I think it comes from within. It comes from inside Egypt, okay? For everything that I mentioned and other things I'm not mentioning. It's a complex subject, but it's a very interesting question indeed. I think that most of all, this sexualization of modern Shaabi is an internal reaction of Egyptians, and it's also a sign of the times, right? Sometimes people want to be seen, and they want to be the center of attention, and they want to have a voice, and they want to be seen. Yeah, I will repeat that. They want to be seen, and they don't really know how. And being sexual in Egypt is a very easy way to get noticed, a very easy way to be seen, even if it's not in the best lens, in the best way. All right. So the sexualization of Shaabi, I think it's more of a reaction to the repression, the sexual segregation and repression of Egypt than it is coming from the Western influence. But guys, if you're watching this live or in the replay, and if you have a different opinion, please let me know what you think about that. Because this is just my opinion, it's my perspective, but other dancers, someone who knows Egypt well, may have a different perspective, and I'm interested about it, okay? Let me know what you think. Sahar says, You are doing a wonderful job to bring more understanding for Egypt dance to interested dancers. Yes, thank you, Sahar. Yeah, I love Egypt, obviously. You know, I am a daughter of Egypt. Yani, أنا بنت النيل. You know, daughter of the Nile. And Egypt is not only my career, it's my life, you know. It's where I became a dancer, where I became a woman. So obviously, a lot of what I do has to do with dignifying Egypt and bringing Egypt in the best possible light, because it's like the home of my soul, you know. It's yani my country, Baladi, okay? So what else do I have for you guys? One more question that I have selected. How can I learn Shaabi? Okay, for a long time I did not teach Shaabi. I'm gonna change that, and here's an invitation for you. This December, I am offering an online training, intensive online training on Modern Shaabi inside Joana Saahirah's online dance school. It's happening only this December, and then it's gone. You cannot subscribe later. You can only subscribe now until the end of the year, and then it's gone. And I'm not sure when I will repeat it, because there are many courses and events I want to host at the school, and sometimes I just have to choose the themes, and a lot of themes that people ask me about I only teach once, and we don't have a lot of time to repeat the same themes, okay? And as you know, we're always producing content at Joana Saahirah's World and at our online school, so I always try to bring new stuff. This is a Shaabi, Modern Shaabi training, where you will learn Shaabi dance technique, a full choreography with an amazing crazy Shaabi music I have selected specially for this training. And also you're going to learn the culture, the mentality behind the Shaabi style, and last but not least, the personal skills you're going to need as a dancer and as a human being to master this style and to become a more original, out of the box, outrageous, in the best possible sense of the word, dancer. Yes. Why am I bringing this now? First of all, because it was long overdue, and second, because I made an inquiry inside our platform to know what people wanted me to teach, and Shaabi and Nubian dance were at the top of the choices. A lot of students, a lot of followers told me, Joana, I want you to teach Modern Shaabi and I want you to teach Nubian. So we will not have time for the Nubian this year, but I will bring a Nubian workshop this January. Stay tuned. Just as I learned it from Mahmoud Reda, directly from him. But this December only, I am bringing the Modern Shaabi as per your request. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share the link to this new training either in the comments to this video if you're watching it on Facebook, or in the description box below the video if you're watching it at my YouTube channel. And beware, because there is an early bird prize finishing very soon. Join us now or lose the opportunity forever. It's gonna be amazing. I'm very excited. I'm gonna bring so much of what I've learned from my musicians, from my life and career in Egypt, from my research, from my in-depth observation and work in this field. And I assure you, the way you're gonna learn it from me, it's gonna be very different from anything you've ever done, okay? Because it is a subject that is under my skin, and we're gonna go crazy. And it's gonna inspire you a lot. It is a style that will get you out of your comfort zone, as it did for me. It is a style that will develop your out-of-the-box thinking, new creative solutions, new ways of doing things. And it is also a style that allows us to transform rage into beauty, the need for a revolution into actual actions that change our reality, change our systems. This is going to be the bomb, and I want you to be a part of it. That's it. My loves, thank you for attending live. Thank you, Sahar. Thank you, Stunel, for being here with me live. Thank you for all the beautiful dancers that are watching or are gonna watch this in the recorded format. And keep your questions coming. I will see you very soon For the ones who are not interested in the Shaabi training but want to be a part of Joana Saahirah's world and be the first to receive our news and gifts around authentic Egyptian dance, personal discovery and empowerment, follow the link to subscribe to our newsletter, also shared either in the comments or in the description box below this video. And I will see you very soon at one of our events or one of our courses. Have fun. Enjoy your dance, enjoy your life, and receive my warmest, loving, passionate kiss. Mwah.